Remember when Vince McMahon stormed the ring at the Royal Rumble and tore both his quads just sliding in? Or when a rookie nearly snapped Kurt Angle's arm live on SmackDown? WWE sells controlled chaos, but sometimes the cameras catch something nobody planned for. These are WWE moments that were never supposed to be filmed, starting with Vince McMahon tearing both quads. The Royal Rumble 2005 had one job, which was to get Batista to the finish line. The Save Mart Center in Fresno was packed. The card was stacked and the whole night was built around one outcome. Batista wins and goes to WrestleMania 21. Everybody goes home happy, except nobody went home happy that night as the match narrowed down to its final two, Cena and Batista. The finish was supposed to have Batista press slam Cena over the top rope for a clean elimination. But Batista lost his grip mid-move and both men went over the ropes at the exact same time. A double elimination, the referees froze, the crowd started buzzing. With confusion and backstage there was pure panic. That is when Vince McMahon, 59 years old and not even a wrestler, dressed in a full suit, charged out from the back. He stormed down the ramp like a man who answered to nobody and nothing. He slid under the bottom rope to get into the ring, and the moment his knee hit the apron his left quad tore completely. He tried to stand, but then his right quad tore as well. And he just sat down cross-legged in the corner of the ring, completely unable to move and in obvious pain.
And then when I saw Vince coming down, I was like, getting fired. So I can't remember where we were at like the next day. Went to his office and my heart is beating. I'm like just in my head packing my bag.
But here is the part that became legendary. Vince McMahon with both legs torn and barely able to move sat in that corner and still kept running the show, shouting orders at the referees and directing the restart without breaking character even once. Batista eventually eliminated Cena just like it was planned. The Rumble ended, and only after the cameras stopped rolling did anyone finally come in to help McMahon out of the ring.
I walk into his office, and he's sitting, he's got his crutches beside him, he's all bandaged up, and he just starts laughing. And I was like, you're not gonna fire me?
The next day, McMahon was in Birmingham, Alabama under the knife of Dr. James Andrews, and he was off television for months, and a moment that was meant to be a triumphant Royal Rumble finish instead became something far more unforgettable. The night the most powerful man in wrestling sat helpless in the ring and still refused to quit. Then comes Mickie James and her controversial moment during her run. Few feuds in WWE women's history reached the level of Trish Stratus versus Mickie James as months of obsession, stalking, forced kisses, and shrine building all built toward one destination, which was a women's championship match at WrestleMania 22 in Chicago. The crowd was fully invested and the storyline felt electric as Mickie James was about to do something nobody in that building expected. The match itself was intense and back and forth with high-impact action and the Chicago crowd completely engaged. Midway through, Trish attempted her signature move off the ropes, but Mickie countered by grabbing her in a very inappropriate low area, and then Mickie James turned to face the hard camera, made a V sign with her fingers and performed a provocative tongue gesture in a deliberate and shocking way in front of millions watching live on pay-per-view. The crowd erupted instantly. Jerry Lawler lost his mind on commentary, and somewhere backstage Vince McMahon's face reportedly turned a shade of red that the cameras never even caught.
There's a moment in that WrestleMania match with Trish where you do a certain gesture.
Yes. I mean, the people loved it.
The people loved it.
Vicky had pitched an idea to agent Steve Kieran before the match, which was a softer version of the moment, where she would simply lick her finger after the crotch grab to show her character's obsession, and that version had received a hesitant approval. But when she was actually in the ring in front of the Chicago crowd, the pressure and energy of the moment pushed her to take it further, and she escalated it into a more intense version live on pay-per-view, making the scene far more shocking than originally planned.
Go back through the curtain and Vince is pissed. He's like, that was crass. Do you know what we're gonna have to do? How much money it's gonna cost to edit that and to pull it from we're a publicly traded company.
She thought she would get a hug or maybe a high five, but instead when she walked through the curtain, she walked straight into a storm. WWE reacted quickly, and the moment was removed from DVD releases, network archives, and streaming platforms, replaced with crowd reaction shots, and it was officially treated as if it never happened. But as Mickie herself later admitted, the internet never forgets.
I was like, ugh!
But that footage is nowhere to be found.
You can't find it, or at least not in the WWE vault.
The match itself ended with Mickie winning the women's championship in what Trish Stratus has called her favorite career match. And the gesture that almost cost Mickie everything is now seen as a meme, a legend, and a symbol of a moment where one wrestler committed fully to a character and pushed it further than anyone in that building was prepared for. Then comes Daniel Puder's real armbar on Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle was not just a tough guy, but an Olympic gold medalist, a WWE champion, and someone whose entire persona was built on real athletic dominance. So when WWE needed someone to test tough enough contestants live on SmackDown in late 2004, Angle was the obvious choice. The plan was simple, with quick-worked exchanges to showcase his dominance and make the segment look intense without anyone getting hurt, but then Daniel Puder stepped in. Puder was 23 years old with an 8-0 MMA record and real grappling experience, and when Angle took him down, Puder did not sell it. Instead, he countered and slipped into a tight Kimura lock that was fully real. Angle's face went red, and he was seconds away from a serious shoulder injury or dislocation.
And then I decided, you know what, I'm going to try this son of a bitch. So I took Daniel Puder, and we had like a shoot wrestling match. And the thing is, it was supposed to be by pinfall.
Angle immediately realized what was happening. This was not a cooperative wrestling spot, but a real submission attempt happening live on national television with his arm legitimately in danger. And in that moment, the situation shifted from performance to real survival as he fought to avoid a serious injury while still trying to maintain control of the segment.
But Daniel had my arm tight. I mean, if he would have, if it would have lasted 5 more seconds, he would have broke my arm.
Referee Jim Cordera saw it too and quickly stepped in, fast counting a pin even though Puder's shoulders were not fully flat on the mat. And the referee ended the match with a 1-2-3 and declared Angle the winner. What followed backstage was complete fury as Angle felt humiliated and the locker room was stunned, while Puder, despite winning tough enough, was now dealing with real consequences that had nothing to do with kayfabe. And at the 2005 Royal Rumble, veterans Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and Bob Holly delivered extremely stiff chops that left his chest marked in what many in the locker room saw as punishment. By September 2005, he was released from WWE and later transitioned into MMA. While Angle later reflected on the situation as a learning experience, admitting that his neck injury at the time left him physically vulnerable and that the open challenge contributed to how far things went, and the clip is still remembered as one of the most dangerous real moments ever shown on WWE television, and a clear example of how quickly the line between scripted and real can disappear. Then comes the Montreal Screwjob, one of the most analyzed and controversial moments in wrestling history that took place at Survivor Series 1997 in Montreal, inside the Molson Center in front of 20,000 fans, where Bret Hart defended his WWF Championship against Shawn Michaels in a deeply personal rivalry match. But what happened became one of the most infamous betrayals in wrestling, as Bret was leaving for WCW and had refused to lose the title in Canada due to his creative control. Tensions were real and solutions failed, leading Vince McMahon, Shawn Michaels, Triple H, referee Earl Hebner and others to secretly plan an ending where during the match Michaels locked in Bret's own sharpshooter and Hebner rang the bell without Bret submitting, instantly awarding Michaels the championship in a moment that shocked the entire arena and changed wrestling history forever.
The whole Screwjob is based on a single conversation between me and Shawn, maybe a month before the Screwjob, where I stopped him. I said, we're wrestling each other at Survivor Series.
Bret had actually gone to Shawn before the event and told him he had no issue dropping the title and reassured him that he would always be safe in the ring with him. And Shawn's response at the time is often described as the moment that planted the seed for everything that followed, as whenever Bret said that to him, Shawn's reaction reflected the tension and mistrust that would later explode into one of the most controversial outcomes in wrestling history.
And I said that to him, and I remember Shawn looked at me, and this is where it all came from, is he looked at me and said, well, I appreciate that, but I just want you to know that I'm not willing to do the same thing for you.
Bret then spat at Vince at ringside, destroyed the monitors, and spelled out WCW in the air with his finger, and backstage he confronted Vince McMahon and reportedly punched him, leaving him with a black eye, while The Undertaker also demanded an apology on Bret's behalf. And the fallout was massive as Bret Hart eventually went to WCW, but his run there ended after a concussion caused by Goldberg that effectively finished his in-ring career, and the Montreal Screwjob, which was captured on camera and unfolded in real time, became one of the most defining and controversial moments in wrestling history, helping give birth to the Mr. McMahon villain character that would fuel the entire Attitude Era and drive WWE into its biggest ratings surge, showing how a real-life controversy transformed into a storyline that changed wrestling forever. Then comes Titus O'Neal's famous ring slide during WWE's first Saudi Arabia pay-per-view event at King Abdullah Sports City in Jeddah in 2018 in front of around 60,000 fans during a massive 50-man Royal Rumble stacked with big matches meant to showcase the company on a global stage. When Titus O'Neal entered at number 39, he sprinted down the ramp with full energy, ready to make a big impact. But as he reached the edge of the apron, his foot caught the seam where the ramp met the floor and he completely lost balance, sliding face first under the ring and disappearing entirely underneath the apron in a moment that instantly became one of the most replayed and unexpected comedic accidents in WWE history.
Into the Rumble, 39 men, and the leader of Titus Worldwide, Titus O'Neal. Titus had a very busy week here in Saudi Arabia. He's had dinner with many princes and very important people, and he just
The commentary team completely lost it in that moment as they reacted in real time to what had just happened.
Oh my God, what the heck? What did Titus just... I can't believe what I just saw. Did that really happen? Oh my God. Oh my God, did that happen?
Titus emerged from under the ring, climbed back in, and started throwing punches like nothing had happened. But WWE production had completely different plans as they replayed the slide over and over again, first in real time, then again in slow motion from multiple angles, and by the end of the broadcast the Titus World Slide had already started trending worldwide. Backstage, Vince McMahon reportedly fell out of his chair laughing and was in tears while ordering producers to keep replaying it. Corey Graves has said he could not stop laughing and completely lost his professional composure, and the internet immediately turned it into a viral moment with memes, edits, and compilations gaining millions of views within hours, with WWE itself even leaning into it by posting multi-angle footage online, while wrestlers like Bobby Roode called it the greatest entrance ever and Big E broke it down like game film. And Titus O'Neal himself embraced the moment, explaining that he avoided serious injury and that it ultimately led to more visibility, merchandise, and his later role as WWE Global Ambassador, even recreating the slide at charity events and fully owning the moment. And in an event meant to showcase perfection, what actually went viral was an unexpected fall that became one of WWE's most memorable highlights. Then comes CM Punk's pipe bomb. Just 3 weeks away from the end of his WWE contract in 2011, when he walked out on Monday Night Raw in Las Vegas with a scheduled title match against John Cena at Money in the Bank, but instead delivered one of the most shocking promos in wrestling history, sitting cross-legged at the top of the ramp with no music and just a microphone in hand, ready to speak freely with nothing left to lose.
I'm the best. I'm the best in the world.
And then he started naming names, calling out John Cena as an ass-kisser, Hulk Hogan as a glad-handing yes-man, and The Rock in the same way, saying Vince McMahon was surrounded by idiots, and also targeting Stephanie McMahon and Triple H as the people who would eventually run WWE into the ground after Vince was gone, delivering it all in a direct and emotional way that shocked everyone watching because it felt completely unscripted and brutally honest in a way WWE television had never seen before.
There's one thing you're better at than I am, and that's kissing Vince McMahon's ass. You're as good as kissing Vince's ass.
He also called out his friend Colt Cabana by name, directly challenging WWE's unspoken rule of ignoring the independent wrestling scene, and said he would leave with the title and defend it in New Japan and Ring of Honor. And when he began talking about Vince McMahon himself, the microphone suddenly cut out live on air, with Punk looking into the camera and mouthing the words, "I've been silenced," as the crowd chanted his name and the internet instantly exploded, while backstage even those he had criticized understood they had just witnessed something very rare, although there is important context because the promo itself was approved in advance as a worked shoot with Punk pitching the general outline to Vince McMahon, who allowed it with the instruction not to get the company sued, meaning the structure was planned, but the intensity and specific ad-libs made it feel far more real than expected. And Punk himself later explained that the mic cut was a planned dramatic moment, but the emotional weight and detail of the delivery surprised even management, especially references like Colt Cabana and personal industry criticisms which caught executives off guard. And while some versions on streaming platforms have been edited or muted, the moment's legacy remains intact, with Punk winning the WWE Championship in Chicago weeks later and beginning a long reign that defined that era and permanently changed how WWE approached realism in storytelling. Then comes Shane McMahon's glass botch at King of the Ring 2001, during his street fight with Kurt Angle in East Rutherford, New Jersey, where a planned stunt involving breaking glass panels went wrong because the production used plexiglass instead of breakaway stunt glass. So when Angle threw Shane into the panel, it did not shatter as intended. Instead, Shane bounced off it and crashed to the floor below, hitting his head and suffering a concussion with real blood visible, and Jim Ross reacted live on commentary with genuine concern as the moment quickly turned from a planned spectacle into a dangerous accident.
These men in a very dangerous, precarious situation and position here, being on the exposed concrete floor right in front of the King of the Ring set. Oh.
Anyone reasonable would have stopped there, but Shane McMahon is not reasonable, and instead of calling it off, he told Kurt Angle to do it again. So Angle repeated the same move, and the result was the same, with Shane bouncing off the panel and crashing to the floor again, leaving him bleeding even more, and each attempt made things worse as he became more disoriented and more beaten up, with his back, arms, and legs covered in cuts from the repeated impacts.
Almighty, Shane McMahon thrown with a suplex upside down, and then I think Shane's head just bounced right off the concrete floor. Shane McMahon is down.
Backstage, Vince McMahon was reportedly screaming into headsets to stop the match while watching his son take repeated unprotected falls onto concrete and get more injured with every attempt. But Shane refused because he was determined to get the spot done. And on the fourth attempt, Kurt Angle shifted to the adjacent panel, which finally shattered as the glass exploded and the crowd reacted instantly. And then they repeated another crash through a second panel before the match ended with Angle winning via ankle lock submission after about 26 brutal minutes, with both men ending up hospitalized, Shane for stitches and concussion monitoring and Angle for a broken tailbone, and the early failed attempts became one of the most disturbing parts of the footage as Shane repeatedly hit the floor in a way that looked far more dangerous than intended, turning a planned stunt into a real endurance test caused by a prop mistake and Shane McMahon's refusal to stop. Then the narrative shifts to Mick Foley's second Hell in a Cell fall at King of the Ring 1998 in Pittsburgh, where Foley had proposed starting the match on top of the cage with no safety setup, and Undertaker even warned him about the danger. But the match went ahead, and the first major bump was actually planned as Undertaker threw Foley off the top of the cell through the Spanish announce table, causing a huge shock, with Foley getting back up and climbing the cage again despite officials considering stopping the match. But what followed next was not planned when a choke slam caused a weakened cell panel to break, and Foley fell straight through the roof of the cage to the mat below, and a steel chair also fell and struck him in the face, leaving him unconscious before he even landed, creating one of the most infamous and replayed moments in wrestling history.
So I don't know if Hugo knew what was happening, but legend has it that he didn't, because he dives at just the right moment, right?
Wow, Mick's getting awful close to me!
The Undertaker later said it felt like time stopped, and he could see in Foley's eyes that nobody was home, while referee Tim White thought Foley was dead. And backstage, Vince McMahon broke character completely and immediately rushed to get medical personnel into the ring as the cage was raised and officials flooded in. But then Foley unexpectedly regained consciousness, looked at Terry Funk's shoes and asked for the thumbtacks. And the match somehow continued as Foley took more punishment, including being driven into a pile of over 100 thumbtacks that embedded into his body, followed by a tombstone piledriver that led to the pin and The Undertaker winning the match, ending with Foley somehow surviving with a concussion, dislocated jaw, dislocated shoulder, bruised ribs, internal bleeding, multiple puncture wounds, and even a tooth lodged inside his own nostril, with Vince McMahon later finding him in the trainer's room and telling him he appreciated what he had done but never wanted to see it again. And while the first fall was planned, the second was a genuine accident when the cell roof gave way unexpectedly, creating one of the most disturbing unscripted visuals in wrestling history as Foley lay unconscious while a chair struck him and medics rushed in and the entire arena went silent, making it one of the most dangerous and unforgettable moments ever broadcast. Then the focus shifts to the tragic case of Darren Drozdov, a former NFL punter turned WWE wrestler who was in a match against D.L.O. Brown at a SmackDown taping in 1999 at Nassau Coliseum when a routine powerbomb went horribly wrong due to timing and grip issues, causing Drozdov to land directly on his head and fracture his C4 and C5 vertebrae, leaving him motionless in the ring with immediate realization from everyone involved that something had gone seriously wrong.
To this day, we're friends, so let's put that on blast. We call each other, we talk all the time. We've watched it back, both of us together, and still to this day can't figure out what went wrong.
The move they had performed together countless times before had, for reasons that still remain difficult to pinpoint, gone catastrophically wrong in front of a live television audience, turning what should have been a routine finish into a life-changing injury in a matter of seconds.
It was a running powerbomb. We had done the damn thing 100 times on house shows leading up to that night. Just on that night, something went south. And I mean, look, that's my lowest point in this business. I actually quit wrestling that night. I was like, I'm done.
D.L.O. left wrestling that night and was initially devastated, but he was later brought back by Jim Ross, who personally called him and gave him what D.L.O. described as a football-style speech, telling him that things like this can happen and that careers should not end because of one accident, encouraging him to keep going for both of them and to not let that moment define everything he had worked for in wrestling.
If I could take one thing back in my entire life, it would be that whole night. I would even have had that match or whatever. It just, unfortunately, this is not ballet. It's not a dance. And every day you go out there, you risk something.
Dr. Death was taken to Winthrop University Hospital, where surgery confirmed quadriplegia, meaning he would never regain movement or feeling below the shoulders, and WWE has never rebroadcast the segment, as it does not exist on the WWE Network, Peacock, or any official home release, having been completely removed from the record not as a cover-up but as an act of basic human decency that the company is rarely credited for, while Dr. Death himself has carried no bitterness and has spoken positively about his faith, his family, and his friendship with Doc. describing what happened as a freak accident and choosing to move forward with his life. And although the footage was never intended to be preserved, it still aired, and in those few seconds of silence in the Nassau Coliseum, while a man lay still on a mat and the world slowly realized what it was seeing, professional wrestling was confronted with the full weight of what it truly demands from its performers. And then came Owen Hart's fatal fall, one of the darkest nights in wrestling history, which took place at Over the Edge 1999 at Kemper Arena in Kansas City, where Owen Hart, age 34, a 5-time tag team champion, an intercontinental champion, and one of the most technically gifted wrestlers of his era, was also a husband and father of 2 who had reportedly expressed concerns about the stunt he was about to perform, which involved being lowered from the rafters in a harness as part of his Blue Blazer superhero gimmick, with a quick-release mechanism intended to detach him safely near the ring, a system that had been tested earlier that day during a dry run, but it failed in real time and released prematurely, causing Owen Hart to fall approximately 78 feet, strike the top rope and turnbuckle, and land chest-first on the mat, resulting in a fatal aortic injury. And he was pronounced dead shortly after being rushed to Truman Medical Center, while the live broadcast cut away from the ring immediately. After the impact was heard, no footage of the fall itself ever aired, and no camera captured the impact, while commentators Jim Ross and Jerry Lawler, clearly in visible shock, tried to continue the broadcast before Ross broke down and said, "Good God Almighty, we've got a situation here," and WWE ultimately chose to continue the show, a decision made by Vince McMahon that remains controversial to this day, based on the belief that stopping the event would cause greater panic and that pay-per-view buyers had contractual expectations, meaning the show had to go on, while backstage the locker room was devastated and The Undertaker wrestled the main event with visible emotion. Bret Hart learned of his brother Owen Hart's death over the phone, and Martha Hart, Owen's widow, later filed a wrongful death lawsuit against WWF alleging negligence, which was settled in November 2000 for $18 million, with part of the settlement sealing access to all related evidence including footage, and while WWE later released an edited version of the event on the WWE Network in 2014 with all references removed, bootleg audio has circulated but no verified visual footage of the fall has ever been made public, as WWE has actively ensured it remains unseen. And Owen Hart is remembered as one of the safest and most respected performers in wrestling history, a man who was widely loved and considered incredibly skilled, whose death led to major changes in industry safety standards, and whose final moments, heard but never seen, remain one of the most haunting reminders of how quickly things can go wrong when performance is prioritized over human life. And as the story closes, it leaves behind a lasting sense that this was never meant to happen, and those who experienced that night never truly forgot it.